All right. Hopefully, everybody can see us. This is the second week we're doing this, so I am going to pray and hope I can see people coming in and that we're streaming. But I'm going to make a comment in here to say, make sure everybody's joining in. Hello, everybody. Okay. Then I'm going to check one more thing, Ricchard, and make sure we're good to go. Yep, I see a couple, another viewer. Okay, if you're on, can you go ahead and just make a statement, say hello, hi, how's it going? I see a couple viewers coming in. And I know you guys can hear us. And that'd be an ease to my mind for sure. There you go, Naya. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So now that everybody can see us, I will just give an overview of this series and kind of what we talk about each week. And then I'm going to introduce my illustrious guest before we get started. But we were doing Zoom each and every week, talking to you all about multiple topics, especially since the pandemic. And we also realized that, man, you guys are doing Zoom all day long. You are on Zoom for school. You're on Zoom for any extracurricular activities. Y'all doing karate on Zoom. I don't know how that even works, but y'all are like doing chopping wood and everything, literally on Zoom. So what we tried to do is give y'all a little break and do this thing on YouTube. We are prayerfully, you guys can join in on the YouTube link and see us, and you can chat live. But if you wake up a little bit later, that's cool, and we can have that conversation. You can see the conversation at kind of at your leisure to kind of give you all a break with that. So in this series, it's called Rise Above. Hopefully you guys have been seeing all the graphics we've been sending out about it. And you were able to check last week when we interviewed Dave about his story. But what we are talking about is how you rise above situations, life, and because of your view of Christ, right? That somehow Christ, God has come into your life in some way, giving you strength, giving you encouragement, and that's led you to the life that you have now. Now, we're not saying, let me back up. We're not saying that means like a bunch of money and like a really big house and a car. That's not what I mean by rise above. Rise above is a lot about how you view life and how you've been able to see the blessing and the hand of God in your life kind of pushing you forward in the life that God wants for you. Which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. It just means that it's right. It's a perfect fit for who you are because He created you. So that's what our series is about. Like we've been doing this entire time. If you have any questions or anything that you want to have answered throughout the interview, feel free to shoot that comment or question on the live chat. Naya, I see that you're on. If you can, help with that as well. I know you were good about that last week as well. So anytime, and then I'll read that off and then get our guest to answer that question. Okay, I will attempt to do a introduction. I can at least probably talk about where we've been from. So Ricchard Carter, I've known him for like 6 years, I think. Let's see, like 2014. Which we probably have a funny story how we met, but I'll let him share that story. But he has been a big brother to me. We started doing youth ministry together at another church, at Church Without Walls, for years. So we were doing that for like 4 or 5 years together. Kind of was the first person I even saw when I went into the ministry as a leader, and he's just been a huge impact on my life, my family. He has an interesting story, which we'll get into. He's been kind of across this whole country, been places across the world, doing things in athletics, and had a successful career in the health industry with it there as well. But I speak to him as a man. He is an awesome father, awesome husband, awesome mentor, always about being unselfish and about other people. So I think he'd be a great person that you all can learn from how God has impacted his life. So thank you, brother, for joining us today.
Man, thanks for having me. It's funny, all the stuff you were saying, I was looking around thinking, who are you talking about? You know, like, me? No, that's cool, bro. I appreciate you for allowing me to be on today. I really do. I think it's an incredible thing to just see where we started, you know, back at, you know, Church Without Walls, and now you transition, you know, to another church, but still doing what, you know, God has called you to do, man. And I think that's incredible, you know, incredible. And so I just, whatever I could do to help, I always told you, you know, just a phone call, or now I guess I could say is a Zoom away,
Yeah.
you know, so that's cool.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. So tell me about, give me a little bit about your background so everybody can hear kind of where you're from, kind of your, you know, family that you grew up with. Tell me a little bit about, you know, if I were to just go back in time, you know, and figure out what was going on with Ricchard and kind of how you grew up and where you grew up.
Yeah, okay. So I'm originally from a small city called Passaic in New Jersey, probably about 20 minutes away from New York City. So it's northern New Jersey. Um, it's a small city, about 2 or 3 miles, pretty much is the whole city. Very mixed in culture. A lot of blacks, Hispanics, just like a melting pot of just everybody all together. So I grew up with pretty much every nationality in my neighborhood. And from high school, I was a decent athlete, and so I played football and ran track. Got a football scholarship to University of Iowa, and so I went to the University of Iowa where I played football and studied sociology. So I have a degree in sociology and a minor in human relations. I had a great time playing in the Big Ten and doing all that, you know, doing something that I love to do. But the greatest, I guess, impact Iowa had on me is I met my wife there. And so that was something that was just huge. Carmen, and we've been married now, it's going on, what, 18, it's 18 years, going on 19 years. So going on
Wow.
19 years. You see me stuttering, thinking like, how many years?
Yeah.
You know,
She better not be in the
going on
room.
19 years. And with our union, we have two beautiful kids. Amari, who's 13, who's in the 8th grade, and then RJ, who's 7 in the 2nd grade. And let me back up a little bit. Once school was over, we moved to New Jersey, where I was a teacher and a coach for a period of time. Decided that we wanted to visit our friends here in Houston. My college roommate and her sorority sister came visit in Texas, and it was 70 degrees in February. Went back to New Jersey, and we literally had a snowstorm. And so we both looked at each other and was like, man, we can't do this no more. And so from that, we just said, hey, let's move to Texas. And people always ask me, is there more to it? Like, was it the job or was it this? Literally, it was the weather. And we're here now for, you know, close to 17 years. My wife is a administrator at Purdue University. I currently work for Johnson & Johnson. And we've been doing, you know, love Houston, love Texas. And as you mentioned earlier, you know, I do a lot of stuff in the community with mentoring, and, you know, my passion is youth, and still do work at the church as well, you know, whatever it may be, you know, all the that you can wear being a youth leader. And so we just continue doing that.
So let me, I'm gonna give, I'm gonna try to paint a picture, or like a video camera, you know. So growing up, man, I always thought it was Passaic. I don't know if that's just how I always heard you wrong, but you said it so proper when you just said it now, man. Like when you talking about the city you're from.
Passaic. Passaic.
Man, I've never heard you pronounce it that way.
I should have worn my T-shirt that says Passaic Legend on it.
Oh, there you go, man. They still talking about you in the city?
No. It ain't like that. Everybody got one. Everybody got one.
Man,
no, it's
so going back to, let's say, like a 13-year-old Ricchard. Okay. In Passaic, you know, in New Jersey, I guess a relatively, I mean, I don't even want to say a small town, because I mean, New Jersey is just so populated with people. I mean, 20 minutes from New York. I mean, it's not, when people hear like 1 to 2 miles, they're like, oh, it's a small town. Like, nah, it's just, that's how things are in the north. I mean, you got cities. You can just in Texas it's weird because you got like Houston and you driving 4 hours, you're still in the city of Houston.
Right.
But now it's not even like that. It's you can drive 10 minutes one way, you're in a different city
Absolutely.
in kind of New Jersey. So how 13 years old, what is filling your mind at 13 years old and besides, I know you're playing football at that time.
Yeah.
How does God, like your view of God, and how does that work out? Yeah.
It's crazy. That's a great question. At 13, you're right. Football was my life, but I was also very involved in the church at an early age, right? And so it wasn't looked upon as if church was something to me as an area, almost like a hangout, because all my good friends were at church as well. So it wasn't looked at something of, man, I gotta go to church. It was like, we're going to church because we had great youth leaders, great Sunday school teachers, and then my friends were there. My and family. So I was a part of the church, not necessarily understanding what church was all about, because I looked at it just like another place to go. But I think what was strong about it was that's where the foundation was placed there. Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't know why I was there in regards to learning more about God, I was just always around. So it became almost like a good habit to have, and as I continued to grow, it was just like, we're going to church, so you think about at 13, no matter how much I hung out and did things, I spent the night at my friend's house, or they spent the night at my house on a Saturday night, no matter what time we went to sleep, we were getting up, going to church. Now we may go to church and fall asleep in church, or not pay attention, but we were definitely going in the building at that point, and so I think that those things really laid my foundation to who I am today. And I really do thank all of those Sunday school teachers and those friends where church became enjoyable, to me, because of the surrounding and the fellowship that I was receiving.
Yeah. So, how were you guys, you said you're in church almost every Sunday. It was kind of it wasn't a question. So, you weren't, maybe you were deciding to do that, but I imagine your parents had a lot to do with like making sure that happened. Got you up, making sure you're in church, that kind of thing. So I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, I can go to that. I think, and this is something that was a little weird, to be honest, kind of put my parents on blast a little bit, is that my dad was definitely like, man, if you're gonna hang out, you're going to church, right? And then even while we got to church, when we were leaving, he would always ask, or they would ask, what you learned today? And I was like, God loves us, Jesus is the best, recite John 3:16,
Yeah.
And so I never forget, after a while, he was like, all right, you got one more time just to come in here and just say, God loves me. So that kind of clicked, like, okay, I need to start paying attention and understanding what was going on, because I need to give him more. But what was crazy was that my mom went to one church and my dad went to another. Now they're married, but they went to two separate churches. And so I went to church with my mom, more, because she was a little bit more consistent of going, way consistent. She was that mom that was involved in the choir and, usher and, everything around the church. So, my dad was more just a Sunday service person, going. So it was a little strange in that regard to be able to have, both your parents live in a house. It wasn't like they were divorced, but go to two different churches, And certain times I would go to his church and felt okay, but I felt a better, a more, connection with Calvin, which is where, my mother went to.
You're going. Okay. But that's big. It seemed where, you're going and that was a part of your life. So I think I said 13, I can't remember age, but, football was big, it was probably all encompassing your mind, but then that consistency in church and, going and making sure that, it's kind of building that foundation, and I think we'll probably get to this later, but it talks in the Bible about, planting seeds, like one planted, the other watered, and then God saw the increase, right? So that even though being in the place was important because even though you probably can't even remember a sermon that you heard. Maybe you can, but it was something that was just coming into you in some ways. So it kind of set the stage for later.
I still keep in contact with our youth minister, who has his own church now, Reverend Clayton, and he used to do certain things like take us places, and back then when you had the church vans and things like that, he had a little escort. We used to hop in a little escort and go to favorite restaurant was Friendly's ice cream, to the East Coast restaurant. We used to go there, and you didn't think much of it, but I believe all of that, what he was pouring into me at that age, is why I do what I do now. It's like, with me poured into the youth, it was because someone was pouring into me. And that's, to be honest, that's my hope now, that what you're doing, what I'm doing, there's some young person listening, whether they're involved in the church because mom is making them or because they want to be involved, that we're pouring into them so that when they get older and become our age, then they're going to pour into somebody else. They'll pour into little J, and then little J is going to pour into another person. And that's how I think really what Christ wants us to do. So even if you're not understanding and you're not paying attention, as long as if you stay around long enough, something is going to sink in. It's almost like when you go outside, right? You ever go outside and, you may not even do nothing, but when you come back from being outside, it's like you smell like outside. It's like something is going to pour in on you as long as you're in that place. And I believe that's what church has done for me. Even though I didn't know what was going on, I was around it so much. The next thing you know, here's a quick funny story. I hated the song Amazing Grace. Literally.
Oh, really?
And the reason I hated it because it was so long. So we used to have to stand up every Sunday and sing Amazing Grace, holding hands. I used to be mad because the person I'm holding hands are sweaty. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, we singing. And we used to sing every verse. And I used to be like, oh my goodness. Until one day it hit me what that song was all about many years later. And to be able to hear it when it says, he saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. And I didn't realize that I was learning the song all of those years I was listening to it. And now it really, the song became true to me. It became real to me. But it started back at, I think the address was 419 Harrison Street, where the church that was, listening to it for all those times. And I believe that's where, your foundation is set in what we're doing now.
So that's a perfect segue. When do you think that song became, I know it's real to you now, but when was it that moment when you realized, okay, that God had saved like a wretch like me? So what I'm trying to say is, not to make a moment, right? That time when you were like maybe at a low, kind of just thinking about maybe it could have been something that you were doing that wasn't, God wasn't really happy with you doing, or a time in your life where you felt like everything was just out the way and you kind of could see how God, that song was so true. Like he had saved a wretch like you, and it just became so real. Even though you've been hearing it all your life, it was like that song it hits you that hard.
Man,
I don't know if there's
I think real talk, like multiple times, right? Like multiple times. I think, just since we're talking to the youth, I think about a time in which this is a scary, scary time when I was walking home and it was in the evening and I got robbed. I got mugged, and I remember the guy coming to me like gun to the head, like give me your coat, and I remember having my jersey wrapped around, the kids wear their jersey halfway on, halfway off. And my jersey came off and I'm giving him my brand new starter jacket. I know the South, y'all don't wear starter jackets, but it's kind of cold up north. I had a starter jacket, Raiders to be exact. And so he took it and I had no money on me. I had like 76 cents on me. Real talk, I remember like it was yesterday. Took my money, took the thing, had the gun to my head, and I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness. And I remember saying, and my personality, my jersey fell. And I'm like, hey dude, I got a game tomorrow. You mind if I pick up my jersey? So I'm not gonna say the choice words she said, but I was able to get my jersey and run off. And I remember not immediately there, because I think when something crazy like that happens, you're just in a moment.
Yeah.
But I remember just sitting back after that and was like, he saved me. Like this story, the next day in the newspaper, it was like Carter couldn't outrun a bullet, right? Like that was because I was a track dude too. So it was like Carter's speed couldn't outrun whatever. I think it was a bullet. And so I was thinking that headline could have been totally different,
Oh my God.
if whatever. And that when it began to click that God has something, special for me, and I think, and this is something I'll throw this at, that I think I didn't necessarily realize it there. I think sometimes when stuff like that happens, you begin to say like, I'm good, I'm blessed, God got me, I'm good, and I think that is spiritual immaturity, because I think certain times we put ourselves in situations and God gives us grace and mercy to get out of it. But it's not a time for us to gloat about God got my back, God got my back. No, it could be also God is letting us know that, I'm going to bless you, but I want you to be able to look deep down inside and say, should there be some changes that I need to change in my life? And I bring that up to say, you're like, well, you got mugged, you did nothing wrong. Well, my dad told me the night before a game, you need to come home early. You don't need to be out late. You got a big game tomorrow. And I'm like, man, whatever, doing my own thing. And look what happened, or what could have happened. So instead of being able to say like, man, God, I hear you. I hear my dad talking. I was immature because I'm like, I'm blessed. I got this. God got me. Instead of realizing that, wow, but years later, I began to think like, man, he saved a wretch like me. How many other brothers and sisters didn't have that opportunity to pick up their jersey?
Yeah, man. Yeah. That reminds, well, I don't know if I should even mention it, but I mean, it reminds me of when we were doing youth ministry together, and we had, I won't get into all the specifics, but we had somebody, we had talked to him, this individual, the Sunday before, about making the right choice and doing the right thing, and then he ended up getting killed. So it just,
you're right, man. I think, and I hope your youth is listening to that aspect of it, is that, God speaks through people, and God does bless you, I'll give you a personal story right now. My sister's in the hospital. She was just in a wreck on Friday night where he was ejected, out of, her vehicle, and had to be, flighted to get, to a hospital and things of that nature. And I bring that up to say that, there are things that occur in your life that you should be, take heed to. You need to be able to sometimes sit back, and my dad used to always tell me, it's like, take a self-inventory of your life. And so when I look at her situation, get a call like 2 a.m, I was like, man, sits in the hospital, driving, didn't have her seatbelt on, and got hit tractor trailer, flew her out the window, and the only thing she has is a couple of bruises. She may have a little fracture in her back, but nothing but what could have happened, right? Like,
oh my goodness,
what really could have happened?
Could
have been a totally different thing. So I just bring that up, is that sometimes you just need to slow down. And I think that's something I learned too as a kid. Slow down. You ain't got to be all over the place.
Yeah, bro, man. Like, what I'm thinking about right now is anybody listening to this, youth or not. I think there's times, we just gave you 3 examples where in your life it's gonna happen, right? It's gonna be this moment when you're like, God has given me a wake up call. Like, man, like, I think about with you where, God literally put a gun to your head, and, grace, right? Grace, you talk about grace. Grace was go over that situation, and you had a choice, right? To either keep doing exactly what not saying you was out doing all this
Right.
bad stuff, but just, you know, your dad said come home and you didn't come home, right? But like you said, self inventory to say, okay, how can I not put myself in these situations anymore, right? Or it may be like, okay, like in your sister's case, you know, that wasn't even like she was didn't do anything bad. She just didn't put a seatbelt on. But it gives her main perspective, grace. Okay, how can I use my life in a way that is so God glorifying because of the grace He's given me? There's a reason why I'm here, and I think, you know, don't you know, I say for the youth is you don't have to go through something like that. Just look at other people, right? You can look at other examples and say, how do I want my life to be? Do I want it to follow after all this stuff that everybody else wants that really isn't going to make me what God wants me to be? Or do I do that whole self inventory and say, you know what, I'm just going to do what God asked me? You know, I don't need the wake up call. My wake up call is looking at this video right now, and now my life is going to change. I'm going to do what God you want me to do so that I'm aligned with you, right? Um, that doesn't mean, I guess, I'm not trying to say, oh, no, nothing bad's going to happen.
Right.
That's not what it means at all. But what it does mean is now even if something bad were to happen, um, because of my alignment with God, I'm at peace with that, or I know how to deal with that, or God has to give me the grace to deal with that. I don't know if you know, what your thoughts are on that.
No. I think, I mean, it's almost like if you knew walking across 290 that you're going to get hit, like you walked across 290 and you got hit, and now you see some
Yeah.
other kids about to walk, we're not going to be able to say, well, let them experience it because I got hit. Let them go get hit too. No, you're going to prevent them to be like, nah, dude, hold on. I got the battle wounds to show you what will happen if you walk across 290. And I think the same thing when it comes with life, right? There's experiences that you have, you know, been a part of that you wouldn't want your son or your, you know, your youth that you're mentoring and ministering to have to deal with it. And
Yeah.
so I believe that we're giving an obligation to be able to share our good, our bad, and everything else in between. You know, there's a lot of battle wounds that we have that if we would have listened, we wouldn't have had to go through. And there's, like, as you mentioned, with the one kid that was at our church, was that, man, if I say not directed to him, but his friends. Like, if we said, hey, we need to be quiet and listen, and sometimes you keep talking and doing and distracting, someone may miss something that they need to hear. So as a friend, do you think you was distracting X person from listening to the message, and if they would have heard, would they be here? So now you got to look at yourself and be like, am I being a vessel for the devil?
Yeah.
You know, or am I being a vessel for God? Which one am I? You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we really need to be able to let our youth know, that they can impact people so many ways. One of the things we used to say and still say is, dude, you may be the only Bible somebody may read.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is the way our youth carry themselves. Somebody's always watching. And they're looking at their character. They're looking at their image. They're looking at what's coming out of their mouth. They're looking at what they're listening to. And that can either bring people closer to Christ or push them away.
Yeah. Yeah, we always say you're trying to bring heaven to earth. Like, you should be heaven on earth. Like, when people see you, they should see heaven, you know.
Yeah. Get a glimpse of God.
Yeah. And you talk about friends, like, I mean, we've seen this many times when a kid is not doing anything wrong, but they're just with the wrong crowd. Like, I'm not just thinking, we're not like, I can give probably 5 examples right now, but just he was just with somebody else, and he didn't know where they're going, and then now they're in this situation, or they're in this car with somebody else, and then or they're just at school and they're just in the crowd, and I didn't do anything, but now I'm, you know, now I'm going to court because these people are, you know, I think so much about, you said influence, right? That, like, bringing heaven to earth, but you got to make sure that those people around you are allowing you to shine, right? You got all these people around you that when people see you, they see just this crowd of people that is preventing you from actually showing others. I do want to, since we got a few minutes, and if you have, okay. I got a question. So it says, can you explain to our youth, how do you know when you need to slow down and take a self-evaluation?
Well, I think, great question. I think you should do it. Sometimes I do it not even off of something went wrong. I think that you should always be able to sit back and have moments to be able to say, let me reevaluate.
Yeah.
And mostly like in a workforce, or even in school, that you do it quarterly. First quarter you start something, second quarter you do something else, then you have a midterm, and then you go to third, and you have a final. And I think each level you're reevaluating what you're learning, and then you're being tested on it, right?
Yeah.
But I think when with our youth, one of the things I would suggest is that you be able to write things down. Like keep a journal. Be able to go back and look at what you wrote. One of the things I need to be better at is writing my prayer journal, because you'd be so surprised of how often God is blessing you and answering your prayers. It's like he's 10 for 10, 20 for 20, 30 for 30, And so I would suggest any youth, one is to be able to, here's a good one. I'll go really quick with this, is that one of the things that I deal with psychiatrists, with my work, and they said a good thing for youth to do, especially in this new Zoom world, is to like decompress before you go to sleep. Like take a moment, an hour, 2 hours, turn everything off, be able to have that quiet time. And I think, some people want to call it meditation, but I think when you use that word, it throws people off. Like, I ain't meditating. Some people say it's prayer. So I say decompress and have a moment where it's just you, and be able to just relax and then have a conversation with God. Yeah. And I think then he would direct you into what you need to do. But if your mind is always moving, you're never going to have that time to have a self inventory. And one last thing, I do this. The example I like to give is now, since everybody DVR stuff, right? And I love, talk shows on sports. And I remember one time I was racing home because I knew I DVR'd it, and I was ready to watch, my first take, and it wasn't recorded. And I was upset. And I was like, man, why ain't recorded? And I looked up at the memory, and my memory was full. And it was full with stuff that I don't even watch no more. So new stuff couldn't get in. So I had to go delete the old things that I have either already watched or never watched in order for new stuff to come in. And I think the same thing with us. Sometimes we have to have that self-inventory to remove some of that old clutter, so new stuff can come in. Yeah. And I believe once you do that, you become refreshed, renewed, and you become, a new you.
Yeah, that's good. I think you said that every night. It's almost like it's a self-inventory. I think I was really good just to be able to say, that's when we talk about that, prayer, and, but that's really it. You're really just, allowing God to search you and say, okay, how do I need to reevaluate? But yeah, if you're always just thinking about the next step, you're never going to get there. Or if you're always thinking about, what happened that day, and you always can't slow down and just say, okay, what God are you trying to tell me? I'll ask this question because I think we're kind of out of time, but I know a lot of the youth would be upset if I didn't, because I'm playing football and, kind of in that world right now. So I know you had a very successful football career. I mean, I'm seeing your jersey in the back. Yeah, sweet feet, right, man? You got the
sweet foot. Let them know, baby. Hilarious.
So I just kind of give a, what kind of dedication did you have to kind of be able to get to, Big Ten, full scholarship, playing football, had a very successful, kind of track and football career. Just what did that take, and kind of how God was interspersed through that to kind of get you where it was, and just any advice you have for any of the student athletes out there, for sure.
Yeah. So one of the big things is, I think one is I was given God-given ability. Like, it definitely was given to me at an early age, but I was really, really in love with the sport. From football to track, I wanted to play every day, all day. I wanted to race everybody. So at an early age, that was just who I was. That's what I wanted to do. And I never made excuses of, why I couldn't go to practice or why I couldn't, because I didn't miss it. I didn't miss practice. I didn't, I was always the first one there, the last one to leave. I worked hard while I was there. It was the most important thing to me. Matter of fact, too important where it took away from other things, where, I had to learn how to balance it, but I was almost obsessed with being a football player. And I learned at an early age that it can take me places, like by my sophomore year in high school, and I began receiving, offers or letters from colleges. And I was like, so I could go to college, and I wasn't the best student, nowhere near, the caliber of a Jonathan Daniels. But what I knew was that if I could catch this ball, work hard, it can open up some doors. And so I just continually worked at that, man. I did the extra stuff with track, like I said, it was from, an inner city place, and I ran the hurdles and the hundreds. And it got to a point when track was over, the upperclassmen knew how dedicated I was. They borrowed some hurdles from the school and brought them to my house. So I'm in the front of my house. So imagine, a kid with some hurdles, and I'm jumping hurdles in front of my house, back and forth. And that was just the dedication that I wanted, to be a part of it. I think transitioning into college, right? So now you got that kid that worked his butt off in high school. And this is something that it took me a while to have the courage to talk about more. Was when I got to college, I don't believe as well as a career I had in college, which, like you mentioned, I played a lot, went to 4 bowl games, did all those things. I didn't have the college career that I could have if I would have put the same work I did in high school, right? I thought once I got to college, I'm good. I did everything I was supposed to do. But in actuality, my work ethic wasn't where it should have been. Yeah. And I think that's something that I gave a lot of excuses when I used to talk about it. Like, oh, I didn't play, coaches didn't like me, or, I was good enough, but they was hating, all of those excuses. I got hurt, which, I did get hurt, but that wasn't the whole, that's part of the equation. There's more to it. And so what I want to tell young people is that you can't get to a point where you just begin to rest on your ability. Like you don't continue that drive, you don't continue that hustle, you don't continue that, I'm gonna be the best at everything I do. And I would tell them, so when I look at it in regards to a big thing that to wrap this up with faith is my senior year, I blew my ACL. And I remember, it was a national television game. I remember this was before cell phones. It's just crazy, make me feel old now. But I remember getting back to my apartment, and my mom and dad is calling me, and they're like, we saw you got hurt, blah blah blah. How's everything? And I'm crying, like snot crying. And then my mother's crying. She's emotional. And next thing you know, my dad is on the call, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "What's up, bro?" You saw what just happened. It ain't looking good, And I'm still teary, snot, all that. And my dad was like, "Where's your faith?" That's all he said. "Where's your faith?" And I was like, "Where's my faith? What you talking about? Where's my?" And that's what he said. "You've been talking about faith for a long. Where's your faith now?" Yeah. So I hung up the phone on him. But then I had a come to Jesus moment after. And that right there was something that's always stuck with me when stuff get rough. It's like, where's your faith? And something that where I tore my ACL, but a blessing was I was able to come back before surgery in like 3 weeks. And what the doctor said that, the muscles around it, even though it was torn, it was being protected. Yeah. So I was able to finish out my career. I think I only missed 2 games. Man. Yeah, and so when you look at what God can do for his children, and not saying I'm more special than another person who tore the ACL who had to wait 6 months. Yeah. I believe that God gave me a customized blessing for me because he knew I needed that. And so that's something that I really like to tell you is that, always keep your faith, but also work hard. Don't I like to say this. is that one of the things I try to do more and more is that I try to do as much as I can as if I'm depending on myself, but I pray as hard as I can. Is that it's as if I'm depending solely on God. And I believe when you put the both together, it's incredible.
Yeah. Man, that's a good way to end. Man, I really hope people got something from this today. I know I did. So I do want to thank you, Sir Carter, for your time, just coming out and talking to our youth and just blessing us. It's been a blessing. I think hopefully if people can just rewatch some of the things. I think there's some good things people can learn. I think one what I got is kind of reevaluation, right? People just take that time, slow down. Like, where's your life going? What's it going? I think that's a daily thing. I think that's healthy, right? Look at, okay, how did this day go? How can I be better tomorrow, right? What does God really want me to do tomorrow, right? Not every day is gonna be good, even we can say that to this day, right? I have great days this weekend.
Right.
But if I allow myself to accept that, then I think that's saying to myself, where's your faith, right? Where's your faith that God can kind of bring you to the next spot? So thank you, brother. Any last words, anything you wanna say to the
I would
people?
just say, man, thanks so much. I appreciate all what you're doing, man. I mean, like I said, we're closer than friends, we're family. And I think that if any youth that's watching this is just blessed to have you and your wife to be a part of their life. I think that you both display what a godly couple looks like, but just the values that you bring. And I think that as we talk today about is use the people around you to truly help uplift you and get you from point A to point B. And they don't have, they got the two best role models possible, with you and E being in their life. So keep doing what you're doing. Anything I can do to help, let me know. Love you to death, bro, and just continue blessings to you and your family.
Will do, man. Love you, brother. All right, y'all. We're gonna pray out, and then you hopefully share this with anybody you feel like would be encouraged by it. Would hope that I think this is a powerful week where we can just learn from Brother Ricchard and what he's done. So let's close out in prayer. Father, we thank you for this conversation, that we can just be real with some of the struggles that we have here, where we're just times when our faith is challenged. There's times when we feel we don't necessarily know how our life is going, and we need to just have that quiet time. I pray that all of us can see the example from Ricchard that you've done with your son, Ricchard, and how you have been with him through thick and thin, through the times when literally his life was threatened, and you provided grace. So I pray that youth can learn as by an example, that they can live their life where they can be dependent on your grace, Father, that they can be dependent on you and your direction, knowing that path that you've laid out for them will not be what they expect, Father, but it is the best path for them. So give us a reminder tonight when we're in our beds and we're just getting ready to go to sleep, to just take that time to pray and to reevaluate ourselves, our own lives, so that we can realign to you and renew our trust in you. We love you, Father, and we thank you, and bless us this week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, man.
No problem. All right, brother.
All right.
End in stream now. Okay, let me make sure it's off here.